WTWO's Beyond the Stands podcast is brought to you by Crow Equipment, Andrews Heating and Air Conditioning, Snap Home Media LLC, Sycamore Insurance Associates. Here's your host, Rick Semler.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Stands. I'm your host, Rick Semler. I'm joined by a guy that makes me feel a little bit old. I've covered him since he was a youngster, and I'm talking about Jeremy Lucas, former West Vigo and Indiana State baseball star. Jeremy, good to have you on. I've covered you for a long time, haven't I?
Yeah, you have, Rick. You make me feel old being in here, too. I will say you have had a knack my whole career for not just me, but a lot of young athletes in this county and the Vigo County surrounding areas to make them feel special, to make them feel seen. And so I've always really appreciated that about you.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, but I didn't have to do a lot to make you special. You're a pretty good baseball player back in the day. Also did basketball, but you were a very good baseball player and someone I always loved to cover. One of the reasons I'm having Mr. Lucas in here today, he received a huge honor last week. Indiana State Athletics announced their 33rd annual Hall of Fame class, and guess what? Of the 6 members, one was Jeremy Lucas. So I guess, first of all, you get the call that they want to put you in the ISU Athletic Hall of Fame. What was your reaction to that?
I tried to come up with some words for it, and I really couldn't. I sat down with Nate Christensen and John Sherman, and they let me know that I was being inducted, and it's like I am now, right? It's a huge honor. There's a lot of things in my life that I've been blessed with, and 2 things I'm really proud of was number 1 being a West Vigo Viking, and number 2 being a Sycamore. So to have the opportunity to go down with some of the names like Brian Dorsett, Mike Everly, to be in that kind of company, I'm really honored.
You mentioned being a West Vigo Viking and a Sycamore. That's one of the cool things. I got to cover your entire career because you stayed here in the Wabash Valley, and you always pubbed up the area. So I loved that you stayed in the area. We'll get more about the Vikings later. Let's talk about the Sycamores. You said you didn't have many words for you going in the Hall of Fame. Don't you have to be a little bit older? I mean, you're in your mid-30s to go in the Hall of Fame. Do you feel old going into a Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I do. It feels weird that a lot of people didn't even recognize my picture on the picture that the Sycamores posted. So I need to talk to somebody about maybe getting the beard and the hair back in that picture so people know it's me. But yeah, it does make me feel a little bit old. I thought maybe I had a chance, but I'd have to wait a long time. But I'm super honored.
Now we'll get to your breakdown of your career at Indiana State, but what did your time mean to you being a Sycamore baseball player?
Oh, a lot of things. I started thinking about all the relationships I had while I was there and all the local guys we had that I grew up playing with. Brandon Dorsett and Kobe Kramer, Tyler Wampler, Jordan Pearson, Kyle Burnham. The list goes on of guys that I started, from when I was 8 years old, started playing ball with, and to get to experience high school and college together. 5 or 6 of those guys stood up with me on my wedding day. So it was just, that made it really special to me, and I've always felt like why I'm so proud to be from this area and to be a West Vigo Viking, to be an ISU Sycamore, was that, it's nothing's ever given to us in this area, right? There's always felt like, being at both those schools, that there's a chip on your shoulder that you had to go earn everything. And so that's what made me most proud of not only my career, but the year we had there in 2012, to kind of make a name for ourselves. Not that we, ISU didn't already have that name from a baseball perspective, but just to continue that legacy of success. And obviously Mitch Hannes carried that on. And but yeah, it's I'm really proud of what we were able to put together, and the relationships was really what I carry with me.
Now, you had a great career, great 3-year career at Indiana State, but that 2012 season really was the year that stood out. You went to the NCAA tournament. We'll get to that in a second. But in 2012, first team All-MVC, you led ISU in runs scored, 53, hits 78, batting average 345, homers 9. You were named the MVC Player of the Year. Now, Indiana State has a rich baseball tradition, but you're the very first Sycamore that ever won MVC Player of the Year. That still holds special to you to this day?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of things just kind of culminate in that junior year for me. A lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, but also we had a great team around us. I think of guys that year that had similar years to me, if not better years than me offensively. But I think us winning the conference for the first time outright had a lot to do with me receiving that award as well. So I think about, all the teammates I had. I think about our pitching staff. I think about the guys around me that helped kind of propel us as a team, but also propel me individually to receive an award like that. So, it's obviously a great honor, but I also had some help.
You had a great career at West Vigo, great career at ISU. You were always a good player. I can say that. I covered you. But it seemed to just click for you individually in 2012. Would you say that was true, that you just took your game to another level that year?
I would say that. I think I've always been a guy, and some of my friends and people that know me may argue this, but I've always kind of struggled with my confidence a bit, even though I always wanted to be in front of the camera, and you know that. I was always the first one willing to get in front of there after a game. But yeah, I think, as I got more attention, especially out of high school, getting drafted out of high school was kind of a huge surprise for me. I didn't even think that was an option until, scouts started showing up. So I think as I got more attention that year, I started seeing more scouts in the stands. I really started gaining a lot more confidence. And it was kind of you had to walk that line of, is this going to be something that provides pressure for me, or is it just going to be something I'm going to gain confidence from? And I really tried to just, play with confidence and knowing that, I was going to be an asset wherever I was going to go.
I want to thank our sponsors of Beyond the Stands, Crow Equipment Incorporated, Snap Home Media LLC, Sycamore Insurance Associates, and Andrews Heating and Air Conditioning. Your 2018 American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning building, a higher standard award winner for quality and reliability you can depend on. Call Andrews Heating and Air Conditioning, 765-832-9401. Now, we've talked a lot about your individual success, which I know you don't like to talk about yourself, so let's talk about the Sycamore team. 2012, what a year. You guys started the year off with a bang. I think you had a double-digit winning streak. You were in line to make the NCAA tournament. Then the end of the season gets here, and as good as the year was, you kind of limped to the finish line. And I remember you lost in extra innings at Purdue, which sent you guys kind of in a tailspin. You won against Missouri State to clinch the outright regular season title, lost 2 to Missouri State, lost 2 in the conference tournament, and there was some talk that maybe you guys not make the NCAA tournament. You did make it, but walk me through the waiting days leading up to the draw for the NCAA tournament, how nerve-wracking it was for you guys, because you guys were clearly on the bubble.
Yeah, it was nerve-wracking a bit. I mean, we played our worst baseball at the end of the season. I can remember the way that season started. We got swept at Southeastern Louisiana, and, it was kind of like almost like we had a lot of confidence in who we were as a team going into that year. But, man, when you get swept in the first series, you start asking a lot of questions. And so we really responded well to that. I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened to that team was to kind of get humbled a bit in your first series. And like you said, we just kind of went on a roll from then on. We didn't really look back. The Purdue loss really hurt because we had control of that game the whole time, and Purdue was a really good team that year. I think they hosted a regional that year, and they had, a couple big leaguers on that team, and Kevin Plawecki and Nick Whitgren and Cam Perkins. So that loss hurt. But yeah, it's just, baseball is a game of what's the word? Momentum, yeah. Baseball is a game of momentum, and unfortunately at the end of the year, we weren't playing as well as we could have, and the timing just didn't work out for us, but I think it still doesn't take away from how special of a season that was for us.
Now, how cool was it? It's kind of weird to say this because ISU's been in the NCAA tournament so much the last 10 years, but from 1995 to 2012, there were no NCAA tournament appearances for the Sycamores. You guys ended that drought. You won the individual awards. You won the regular season title. But how cool was it to get Indiana State back in the NCAA tournament?
I mean, that was one of the reasons I came to Indiana State. I just, the history I had around Terre Haute and the guys that I knew were already there, and I wanted to be a part of it. We wanted to be a part of putting Indiana State baseball back on the map. And, I mentioned it before, but how cool was it to have a group of local guys do that from north, south, West Vigo, and surrounding areas. So as much as we hated the way that season ended, it did feel really good to kind of open the door for future programs to kind of have a new bar of what success means for Indiana State baseball.
I remember I was able to not only cover you guys at the NCAA tournament out in Oregon, I flew with you guys out there. So it was a really cool experience seeing you guys play out in Oregon. The NCAA tournament, you lost to Cal State Fullerton 9-5. I remember the game was 5-5, and you lost. You lost to Austin Peay 1-0 in a game that you guys very easily could have won. I guess even though you went 0-2, talk about your NCAA experience and how you feel it went.
It feels like a blur. I try to remember bits and pieces about it. It's been, 13 years ago at this point. I as good as Dakota Backus was that year, he didn't put out his best performance. I mean, I think, he and he'd probably tell you this as well. He might have walked 7 guys all year, and I think he walked 7 guys against Cal State Fullerton. And also we ran into, a really talented Fullerton team. I mean, Jared Lorenzen playing center field, coming in to close the game, 97 mile an hour, and I think he's still in the big leagues doing really well. It was just, like I said, we weren't playing our best baseball at that point, and still gave ourselves a chance to win both those games, and just didn't come out our way.
I remember one thing from the Oregon trip. He had a good season, Sean Manaea, that year, but I felt like his NCAA tournament game really put him on the map. Well, you're a catcher, and you were catching him. Sean Manaea is now, multiple years in the big leagues, been pitching for a long time. When did it click for you that this guy had the stuff to pitch in the big leagues?
Early on, I just seeing his frame. I mean, he came in to Indiana State with no offers. I mean, I think Indiana State was his only offer he had out of high school. I think he was throwing 83 mile an hour. I bet he weighed, 180 pounds at 6'3", 6'4", however tall he is. And I just saw him put the work in. I saw him put on weight, put on size, put on strength, and he came in, late sophomore year, which I would have still been with him. Things were starting to click for him. He was gaining velocity. He always had the stuff, but when you go from 88, 89, 90, 91, and then you all of a sudden start throwing 94, 95, things change a little bit. You become a little bit harder to hit, and all of a sudden, I can remember, hearing what he was doing that summer in the Cape Cod League. He was up to 97. I'm like, he is going to be a problem if he's throwing that hard. And then obviously, he went on to be really special. But I think early on I could see the ability that he had, but he definitely put in the work. He put in the time to get stronger. I watched him back squat, 400 and some pounds, going from a string bean to being able to do that. And that's not an easy thing for a tall guy to squat a lot of weight. So, he's Samoan. I knew it would come in at some point for him. His strength he was just a little bit of a late bloomer with his strength. But that's another huge honor for me, was to be able to watch him develop and to be able to be a part of his career as well.
Is it cool all these years later, like you pitched in the MLB playoffs last year, whether you see him pitching on TV or, catch his highlights, later on to say, hey, I caught a big leaguer. Is that pretty cool for you?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I got to go see him with a few buddies, go throw in Cincinnati. So just to know who he is, to know the type of person he is, and to know that he deserves all those things that he's getting right now, and seeing when he, coming in as a freshman, like his whole trajectory to where he is now, it's a really cool feeling getting to watch him on that big stage.
Now, we talked about your days at Indiana State, just an incredible career that got you in the ISU Hall of Fame, and your 2012 season, one of the best seasons ever by a Sycamore player. That landed you to get drafted in the MLB draft in the 12th round by the Cleveland Indians, which is now the Cleveland Guardians. You lived every kid's dream. What was it like to get drafted?
Well, you were with me that day, Rick. It was stressful. It was really stressful.
It was.
It's and I think that's probably the way it goes for most guys. You have this idea of, what round, what slot, how much money you're supposed to get. And I got several calls in the 7th round and the 8th round. I even had a team tell me, hey, congratulations, we're going to take you with this pick. And you had the camera on me, I'll never forget. And, all of a sudden it's Houston Astros select, not me. And so, at that point I felt pretty defeated, honestly. Like, I was pretty convinced, because they take a break after the 10th round of the draft, or they used to. I don't know what they do anymore, but I was pretty convinced I wanted to go back to school, because I was like, I was supposed to go already. Like, this isn't fair, or whatever. And I had some time to reflect, and I'm like, this is my dream. This is what I want. Cleveland called me on the 12th, and I was just like, just take me. I'm gonna sign. I want to play. And they did. So it's everything's happens for a reason. I will say the start of my career was stressful.
Now, I know you didn't make it to the big leagues, but you did play several years in the minor leagues. Just talk about your experience. And like you said, it was a dream. Did you enjoy, playing professional ball for a while?
Absolutely did. I mean, that was all I've ever known. I mean, growing up, I think I started catching when I was old enough to put the gear on at 5 or 6 years old. And that's all I'd ever known. That's all I'd ever worked toward. So to be able to see that dream come true, and navigate that whole process of what minor league baseball is, what it used to be. It's changed a little bit. They're getting paid more. They've got some more freedom. They're getting treated a little bit better. But what I found is you really figure out if you love the game when it comes to minor league baseball, because I can remember my first few years eating peanut butter and jelly and sun chips in between games, and it's every day. I mean, it's 144 games in 160 days. Half those off days are travel days. So as much of a grind as it was, living in podunk apartments with 4 other guys and paying rent on money that you're barely making, baseball is that overarching thing that you say, this is all worth it if I can get to that point that I want to get to. So, I got to play with a lot of guys that are still in the big leagues. I got to be coached by a lot of legendary guys. I got to learn from so many good players, and got to experience certain facilities and all the things that you get to experience. So it was a blessing for sure, and I have no regrets.
You just bring up something I want to talk about. I have a son who plays travel sports. I'm living that travel sports world right now, and there's so many people don't do it. What would your advice be to any kid right now about just pursuing their baseball dreams?
I haven't put a lot of thought, because it was so different when I was a kid. I mean, I think there were maybe 3-4 travel teams in the whole state you could play for. Now there's,
Gazillion.
double that in Vigo County. So, my advice would be do all the things you love. Try not to specify so early about doing one thing. Be athletic, right? I mean, you see so many kids specify so early, when really, in reality, scouts aren't looking just for your baseball ability. They want to see athletic ability, over, a multitude of sports. So my advice would just be, give it everything you've got, but also if there's something else you love doing, do that as well. Be versatile in your athletic ability, and if you want to put the work in, there's opportunities to put the work in, and you can play every day if you want to. So,
speaking of being athletic, people might not know about you in high school. You were a pretty darn good basketball player, and you were the starting center for the Vikings, right? Showed off that athletic ability.
Yeah, I don't know how much athletic ability, more so than just that's what we needed. We didn't have too many big guys on that roster, but it was an honor to even just be a part of like that classics, over those years where we just had so many good teams and good players with the Idols and Jake and RJ, Austin Akers. I mean, I could name off a lot of guys that had really good, next level basketball careers as well. So, just being a part of that, I knew baseball was my thing. I knew, I didn't really have a future in basketball, but just to be, out there with the guys that we had, and competing, that was it. I mean, you learn how to compete in different ways on the basketball field, on the football field, on the baseball field, and I think it just all kind of combines into into good things for you.
I want to thank our sponsors again of the show, Crow Equipment Incorporated, Snap Home Media LLC, Sycamore Insurance Associates, and Andrews Heating and Air Conditioning. And remember, you can follow Beyond the Stands on Spotify, CastBox, Pocket Cast, and iHeartRadio. Okay, one of the cool things is when guys play for colleges and then they come back and try to take care of that school. And I know Indiana State, even though you live in Terre Haute, but Indiana State baseball is still very important to you. We mentioned from 1995 to 2012, they didn't make the NCAA tournament. Then Coach Hannes comes in after you guys, and it seems like every year they're in the NCAA tournament. It wasn't every year, but it was about 5 times in a 10-year stretch. How proud are you when people ask you oh, you played baseball at Indiana State, and you're like, yeah, look what we do now. You put your chest out there and pound it a little bit hey, we're not your normal mid-major. We can play with anybody in the country.
Oh, definitely. And I think that has a lot to do with that chip on your shoulder thing, right? Of being a mid-major small school, but still being able to go out and compete with the big boys. And watching what the basketball team did over the last few years and 23 and 24 and the baseball team as well. I don't think I'd ever seen Terre Haute more excited about what was going on. So just to be a part of building this thing back up and being a part of giving those opportunities to future student athletes to be successful is something I'm pretty passionate about, and I want other athletes to be able to have similar experiences, because it's one thing to go play Division I sports at the collegiate level, but it's another thing to actually go and be successful at it and be a part of a championship team, or be a part of a team that does something special. And I know that's rare and it doesn't come around too often, especially for mid-major schools, but that's why I feel passionate about being around and supporting and helping and being a part of it, is because it was so important to me. And I want other young student athletes to be able to experience that as well.
Coach Hannes said it, one of the favorite lines he always told me, and Coach Hannes was one of my favorites: Sycamore baseball will play anybody, anytime, anywhere. He always said that. And, you guys have played ranked teams. Not only you played ranked teams, you beat them, the program. Would you seriously – I know there's the Vanderbilts and Floridas, but, would you say, Indiana State, you believe on any given day can go on a dime and play anybody in the country and beat them?
Yes, I do think that. Baseball's a beautiful sport in that way, right? And on any given day, an arm can figure it out that day, and have a really good outing and get you to, a point, later in the game to win it for you. One thing I think is so cool about Indiana State and small schools is there's a group of guys there that, ISU could have been their only option. So, it's not like, I see those bigger programs, and in my mind, I'm like, those kids are pampered. They could have, they had all these places they could have gone, and they did this, do that. And it's like Indiana State sometimes, is like, this is all I was given, and I'm going to give this university and this program everything I have back because they gave me an opportunity. And I think that's that, like we've talked about again, is just that adds to that chip on the shoulder thing. And, it makes you, even more motivated to go beat those programs.
Now, I mentioned it. You do some TV and some radio, a variety of things with Sycamore baseball, but you're also very invested in the program. You're trying to help with NIL. Just describe what you're trying to do these days to help Sycamore baseball.
It's all very new. Me and Tyler Wampler have kind of tried to start heading an NIL support program for the baseball team in particular. And so far what that's consisted of is a golf outing. We're trying to bolster up the golf outing. We're trying to create more opportunities for alumni to get involved, alumni to be seen, more opportunities to get everybody together in the same room for one common goal. I don't agree with the whole new atmosphere of college baseball either, or college sports in general. But it's something that we as a small school have to adapt to if we want to be successful in sports. And so, it may look different these days on where your money goes and what it's being used toward. But, if we want to have those years like 23, 24, or 2012, or all those, if we want to put together a program that can be successful and make it to those regionals, I think that's always the goal, is to make it to the regional at this point. We have to adapt. We have to we have to be able to raise funds to support these players.
You ever wonder, I got to ask, what you might have made in college under the new rules these days?
Take a wild guess. Oh, what I would have made
Yes.
now? Oh, I haven't really.
Catchers make money,
I haven't really put headspace into it. I don't really want to.
You would have got paid, though. You're a catcher.
I probably, I probably would have got paid something. But, at the same time, I'm kind of glad I went through it in that time frame because that wasn't why I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was just always who I was, and I wouldn't want to be motivated by that overlying money thing,
Mm-hmm.
Because I may not win to Indiana State. Who knows? That's kind of the curveball that's been thrown into this whole thing is like, to have to make a money decision at 18, I probably wouldn't have made a smart decision. So I'm glad that it wasn't around, but it would have been nice to make a little bit of money.
I think you would have made the right decision. I know your parents, Mike and Carol, great people. I have a feeling they would have helped you make a wise decision on that. Speaking of your parents, let's go back even further. We talked about your college days. I loved covering you at West Vigo. You had Tyler Wampler, Jordan Pearson, Cam Fagg. Your first 4 hitters all went Division I. You're a part of Coach DeGroat, Steve DeGroat era, one of the best high school baseball coaches in the state of Indiana ever. Just how much fun did you have playing for West Vigo baseball?
Oh, man, it's probably on top of all my baseball memories was being at West Vigo, starting in Little League. I mean, like I said, those guys you mentioned, we grew up playing together since we were 10, 11, 12 years old, and we seemed to always be pretty good, especially together.
You were really good.
So, we went to the state tournament in Little League. We kind of went our own. Travel ball was kind of new. We kind of all started going our own ways a bit, but for it to all come together our senior year, and I can't say enough about Steve DeGroat and what he means to me, what he means to everybody that's played for him over his historic tenured high school career, basketball, baseball, all the places that he's been. Not only the effect he had on us as athletes, but the effect he had on us as men. I mean, I think that's more so why he was there, was to just teach his players how to become men, and he did it in his own way, that's for sure. There were times where I didn't like him so much, but looking back, it was always what I needed to hear versus what I wanted to hear. So real special to be able to share all those memories and experiences with those guys, and I still talk to all of them. We still kind of stuck around Terre Haute, and we're all still pretty close.
One Coach DeGroat story, and we were talking about this before we started the podcast. I think of all the coaches I ever covered, nobody pubbed his program or his kids more than Steve DeGroat, and I applaud him for that, because back in the day, social media wasn't as popular as it is now, and he did a great job of even an average kid, you would have thought they were going to the MLB with the way Coach DeGroat talked about his players. He loved every kid, and he gave them the utmost confidence. So every year back in the day when I was sports director, we used to go out and do baseball preseason previews, and I would go out to West Vigo, and some of his teams were better than others. But like some of those teams that weren't quite as good, he'd be like, oh, this kid's this, or this team, they're going to do this and that. So 2009, West Vigo had arguably the best team in the state, hands down. I go out to do a season preview, preseason, and Coach doesn't want to talk much about the team. Oh, well, we got to work on this, or we got to do that, or no pubbing up this team. So we're done with the interview, and I'm like, okay, so enough of the BS. We know your team is really loaded, and you won't talk about it. That's literally, Coach would not talk about it. You know as well as I do that 2009 team, he loved you guys, but he didn't want to pub you because he knew how good you guys finished as a 3A state runner-up. He knew how good you guys were.
I think we knew it too, and I think that's probably the reason why he didn't have to say it, because we all knew it as well. Because I just think about all the time we put in together. I think at one point during that 09 run that we had, 3 weeks in a row during the season, we were in the auxiliary gym at 6 a.m., hitting, fielding, doing all those things during the season. So I think we got treated a little bit differently because he didn't have to pump us up. We all were kind of pumped up ourselves, and so that's probably exactly what we needed. But I have a couple stories that we can get to. But number one, and you may remember this, Rick, you guys were doing your preseason thing. You were at one of our practices. We were inside, and we were doing like a relay race or something like that. And, all the seniors were captains for the relay race. And I was the last leg of the relay for some reason. I was the slowest guy out there. But, I think my team ended up winning, but Coach DeGroat was convinced that I had left a little bit early. And in front of the cameras were rolling, everybody was there. He singled me out and just ripped into me. Lucas, I don't know who you think you are, thinking you can do something like that. You aren't what you think you are. And, in his own way, right? Mm-hmm. Just like he can make you feel like $1 million and like you're going to the big leagues, or he can make you feel like $0. And it's probably exactly what I needed because, he wanted to put us in that hungry position that we weren't in. So that was a big turning point for me in my career looking back. That was like, I knew how good I was. I think I know how good I was, but he wanted to make sure that like I was still hungry, and he wanted to make sure the whole team knew it. He wanted to make sure the cameras knew it. And so, as much as I did not like him for a while after that, I can look back and think that's one of those memories for me that I'll never forget because it was exactly what I needed to hear.
That 2009 team, as I mentioned, 3A state runner-up loss to Andrean in the state finals, and I think those were the two best teams in the state that year. No offense to the 4A teams. They went 28-2, I believe won 27 straight games. Not only were you guys winning, you were 10-run ruling everybody. I literally have never had so much fun covering a team. I guess, first of all, just talk about that season, how much fun you had, how much you guys just dominated.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities to what happened in 2012. So our first game of the year in 2009 for my senior year at West Vigo, we lost that game to Connorsville. We had bases loaded 3 or 4 times. I think we ended up losing by like 2-1 or something like that. And so that bus ride home, we were like, man, are we really who we think we are? Like we just lost the first game of the year, and I think we went on to win 29 in a row after that. So, there's a lot of memories I do have of that season. My most fond memory being at the state championship game. I forget the score. I forget what situation. It was later in the game, and Coach DeGroat comes out for a mound visit. I want to say we were down, 3 or 4 runs. 5th, 6th inning, Coach DeGroat comes out for a mound visit and doesn't say anything about the game going on. He comes out and we're all, the infield's there. I'm there. I think Pearson was on the mound at the time. And all he said was, if I had all the money in the world, I would build a new field at West Vigo and I'd name it after every single one of you. And he walked off the mound after that, and we were all just kind of looking at each other like trying to process what he just said, and I think it says a lot about who Coach DeGroat is because we spent 4 years trying to get to that place that we were in that moment, and he coached for 20-plus years to get to that place in that moment, and he came out and made it about us and not about him. And, I'll never forget that moment where he came out and for him to say something like that to you, he means it, and it's carrying a lot of weight. So at that point, I think we were all kind of feeling this throughout the whole season, but at that point, it's like we're doing this for him. We want to do this for him, and ultimately we didn't win that game, but I'll bet you money that every time you see him now, he's still wearing that ring. And I see him all the time, and he's still wearing that runner-up ring, and he's super proud of it. I'm super proud of it. I know all the guys involved were super proud to be a part of that team.
That's a great memory. Didn't know that. Coach has shared a lot of memories. That's a great memory. My favorite memory of it, and I'm sure you're well aware of it, you had a lot of great moments during that season, but I was with you guys at the regional down at Southridge, Huntingburg, and you played Jasper. And not only did you play Jasper, you 10-run ruled Jasper. It was the worst postseason loss they had ever had. And I'm not a big Jasper fan, so you absolutely smoked them. I believe it was 10-0. It was not a close game. That was my favorite memory of that season, of you guys winning the regional championship and absolutely crushing Jasper. Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember it fondly. I know Scotty West pitched that game, and he didn't throw a lot that season, but he was a sophomore at the time. So for a young kid to come in that situation and against a team like Jasper and throw the way he did, I'll always remember that. And a couple of the other memories I do have of that season was not only 10 run in Jasper, which felt really good because they were always a name that we were competing with at the top of the rankings or whatnot, but we also 10 run Terre Haute North and Terre Haute South.
You did in the Big Four.
In the Big Four, and I would say which wins felt as good as they could feel. It was those two. It was definitely those two to be able to show that not only are we good, but we're really good, and we're going to stick it to you.
You're right. I mean, and North and South were pretty good that year. I mean, but you guys run ruled once you lost that Connersville game, got rolling, and I want to say like the month of May, I think almost every game you guys 10 run ruled everybody. Like you guys were playing as good as anybody in the state.
Yeah, and we just we had a couple really good arms in our, like you said, I mean, our offense. I mean, we not only did those top 4 guys go Division I, Aaron Welch went and played at Lincoln,
Scotty West,
Cody Thornton,
played you had a stud lineup.
Central. I think all those guys ended up playing ball somewhere. So I think we were just so cohesive together, and not to say we didn't have tiffs and issues during the season, but I think that just as it comes with the territory of being part of a program that expects success like West Vigo does. So it was just there's a lot of memories and feelings that come back from that season, but yeah, it was fun, and I wouldn't trade those memories for anything.
Well, I've taken up a ton of your time. I didn't say we'd go this long, and here we are. Like I said, I could talk to you all day, but congratulations, man. You deserve all the recognition you've gotten. You deserve to go in the ISU Athletic Hall of Fame. And I think the best thing is you've stuck around and taken care of the area. So I appreciate you doing that. I know a lot of people respect you. And thanks for just always taking care of the area, especially for baseball, bud.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I appreciate you allowing me to be here. And it's definitely a huge honor. I have a lot of people to thank. I know I didn't get to everybody, but my family and my parents, for the time and effort and energy they put into not only the baseball player I am, but just the person I am today. So hopefully I get the opportunity maybe at my speech I have to give there at the induction ceremony to thank everybody. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on and giving me this opportunity.
That is Jeremy Lucas, former West Vigo and Sycamore baseball star. He's part of the 33rd annual ISU Hall of Fame class. Congratulations, Jeremy Lucas. That does it for this edition of Beyond the Stands.
WTWO's Beyond the Stands podcast is brought to you by Crow Equipment, Andrews Heating and Air Conditioning, Snap Home Media LLC, Sycamore Insurance Associates. Catch this episode again and more of Rick's interviews online at mywabashvalley.com.